Welcome back to Kris Greenhill's Garage. I'm Kris.
And I'm Kris.
Today begins the interior restoration of Kris Jr.'s 1982 Ford Mustang GT. If you're confused by the fact there are going to be two separate intros, that's because this started off as a completely different project and then morphed into this project, and which kind of got out of hand and out of control, and we did not finish. So this is just part one of this project. We are not going to be able to finish it this week. We are going to come back and work on it later. So it is Thanksgiving week. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone who watches this. And God bless. Y'all have a great day. And let's get on to our nightmare. This is not fun. It's still not fun. It's not going to be fun later this week when we carry on doing it. Welcome back. I'm Kris.
And I'm Kris.
Welcome to Kris Greenhill's Garage. In today's video, we're here in Kris Jr.'s 1982 Ford Mustang GT, which I have affectionately nicknamed Project Piece of Stang. And he loves that nickname, don't you, boy?
Not really.
Pardon me, but once again, I'm losing my voice. And today is one of my rare days off in the month of November or December. And we're going to get some things done on Junior's car today. Hey, our shop cat Jubilee has joined us. That is Jubilation Lee, named after the X-Men, is my daughter's, named her about 13 or 14 years ago. Forget how old she is, but she's pretty old. Hi, Jubilee. All right, here's Junior pulling out the first of the two seats and get these things out of the way. Then we're going to pull the carpet, get a look at the floorboard, and get to work on the drive shaft safety loop and possibly some interior restoration depending on how bad it is. All right, we finally got the center console out. It was like 8 screws and 4 quick disconnect connectors that did not quick disconnect at all, but we finally got it out, and yeesh, there's some rust on the hand brake and mount assembly. We'll have to address that. We're about to pull the carpet, see what it looks like under here. All right, here's our first look at the floorboards, and they look pretty good. Got a little bit of surface rust forming around the seat bolts, but in general everything looks really good. This is nothing that a little bit of rust reformer spray paint won't fix. I'm getting rid of this. It's some kind of factory sound deadener thing, but it's starting to collect moisture and everything. The factory sound deadener is still in here, it looks like. And here, look, oh, the floorboard's beautiful under this factory sound deadener. Just a tiny little bit of surface rust forming. Actually, I'm scraping it off with my fingernails. That's not bad at all. Yeah, this is real good. We were pretty sure the floorboard was in great shape being under the car. This is our first look at it inside the car, and I'm happy. The driver's side is not as good. The front seat bracket is about the same, little surface rust. This over here has clearly been wet for a little bit. I don't know if that's going to show up well with this lighting and the shadows. The carpet's been wet and the seat's been wet. There's no cancer. Nothing is crunchy. It's still very solid metal, but before we move on, we are going to have to stop what we're doing. We're going to have to vacuum this, grind it, and then seal it back up. This is enough that I'm comfortable. If we ignore that for another year or two, it is going to rot through. But I mean, overall, the rest of the floorboard looks great. It looks like just right in here, things got wet and sat for a while. So I am beyond happy with this as a whole. Oh, yeah, I'm going to get back in here and do that a little bit also. We're going to get the grinder wheel out and get to work on that. All right, the executive decision has been made by the CEO and COO of Project Piece of Stang Industries. We are going to pull the entire carpet out and start an interior restoration and stuff. We'll pull the carpet now. We'll do some basic restoration now. We're just going to leave the carpet out to clean up later. And we're going to try to leave the car in a condition where we can still drive it. We'll bolt the seats back in at the end of the day so we can use it. We're going to pull some interior panels out, pull the carpet out, and prepare to start restoring the floorboard, clean up the carpet and all that. But we're going to remove the carpet, get the drive shaft safety loop installed, do some restoration, get the car back together so we can continue driving it. By the way, Kris Jr. is the CEO and COO of Project Piece of Stang Industries. I'm just the money man. I'm not sure I got the good end of that deal. I kind of feel a little gypped now. I think we need to renegotiate, boy.
No, you're fine with what you got.
Oh, terrible son.
Be thankful.
How dare you? All right, I could not videotape it, but for anyone who's never removed a Fox body rear seat, they're just these little bars that slide in here, and you just slide them back and lift them up. I just showed Junior how to pull the bottom part of his back seat out. Kind of a pain at times, but not really all that hard. And the rear seat looks pretty good. That is not rust. That is factory brown primer paint something. All right, let's get this carpet out and get to work. So a little update, when we pulled the factory sound deadener out up here in the footwell, right here by the kick panel where the firewall curves up, we found a hole all the way through to the ground. So far, that is the only real problem. Junior's peeling all the factory sound deadener up over here. This is a 99% rust-free floorboard so far. That little hole, everything else is surface rust, which we can probably knock off today, rust reform, and move on. But we're gonna get on with the rest of our project. We'll do the interior restoration later. All right, so the interior restoration's kind of taken on a life of its own. We're gonna stop this and move on to the original project, the drive shaft safety loop, and we'll start tackling all this here soon. Here's what the floorboard looks like with our drive shaft safety loop installed. Not a big deal, it's just 4 bolt heads. They'll be covered by carpet soon. It's a few days later. We're still driving around with no interior in the car, but we are going to start restoring the holes here really soon. I've got a nice piece of 18 gauge steel, which is what this floor pan is originally supposed to be made of. So here soon we're going to cut out the cancer, measure, make cardboard molds, start cutting new pieces, and start fixing the rust in the floorboards. As we prepared Junior's car for interior restoration, I decided to pull the stereo out and put a new fuse in it. That's all it took. Now there's no wires hooked up to this thing for the speakers, but as soon as we can get some speaker wire, we'll have a stereo again. We found more rust than we initially thought over here under the back seats. We're gonna have to pull the rear seat belt, and we're gonna have to get some of this old sealant and insulation up to look in these corners a little more closely, because it looks like we got some more to do up there. Found a hole under this seat we didn't notice before, and when I was under the car, somewhere in here there are some holes. When I was underneath the car, I was able to look and see light through. So we're going to have to do some patching here on the seam where the front floor pan meets the rear floor pan. I also didn't realize how much of the factory sound deadener we left on this thing, so we're going to have to scrape it and chisel it up. And I don't think this is factory. I think someone has come in here and already tried some rubberized coating. Not 100% sure. I see some bronze or gold under here. I'm wondering if that's been welded up and patched before. We got a lot of grinding to do to get to bare metal to see what can be saved and what has to be replaced. One of the first orders of business will be to fix whatever these panels are. I'm not sure if they're factory or what, but they are rusted and rotted. I'm just pulling them apart with my hand. I'm going to go look and see if my 88 Mustang has these. I don't remember these on any of my cars. Yes it does. They're just in really good shape and rot free and coated in rubber and looking good. Huh, okay. Well, Oh well, we're gonna cut those out and weld them up. Really good news. Once that panel was removed from there, that cleaned up really well. There's no rust. Just ground off the surface rust and primer, and we ought to be able to spot weld a patch panel over that. Ignore pieces of carpet. This was what we were using to keep all the wind and everything, all the engine noise out. But when I come through here, when I get the welder fired up, I'm gonna come through here and patch up a bunch of these holes that aren't being used. We've got quite a few of them all around. We've got to get back here and check this entire seam and see what's salvageable and what needs welded. This is less than ideal. I hit this just with the wire wheel, not the grinder, just the wire wheel for surface rust, and found we have holes in the floorboard. So that is not what I was hoping to find, but I mean, that's why we're doing this. It's better to find it now than have the car rot out from under us. So we'll just carry on and just add that to the list of things to fix. Hey Kris, our 1 day, 2 day project turned into a couple of weeks, huh? Yeah. But it's better to get it over with now than have the car destroyed later.
Why do we even call them 1 day projects to begin with?
We have never successfully had a 1 day project, have we? Ever? Not once.
Not even changing out spark plugs.
No, we've managed to screw up even changing out spark plugs. Good times. Oh, there's that other hole that I found from underneath. Got a lot of grinding to do to find all the cancer. A lot more cancer than we thought. Well, this is less than ideal. What I estimated to be a 95% rust-free car, I'm downgraded that to about 85 now. All the seams around here are rusty. Junior started hitting this with just the wire wheel just to clean it up, and metal started flaking off, and I see a couple other spots over there that are going to do the same, but we're going to discover and get rid of as much rust as we can and then weld in as much good stuff as we can. Good job, bud. Things continue to get worse over here. We just, every time we hit a wire wheel or something, we get more rust holes that have come all the way through. It appears to be mostly this top panel. You see the back floor pan comes down and goes over this front floor pan for like an inch. And it appears to be this overlay on the top coming off the floor pan that is completely rotted out. There's some good metal underneath it, but this entire top thing seems to be garbage. I didn't want to, but I'm afraid I'm at a point where I'm gonna have to cut this whole seam out and then just get a new piece of metal and try to weld it in. Just cut whatever I need there to seal that back up, because if we leave any rust or anything, it's just gonna keep rotting. Meanwhile, Junior's working on that side. A lot of the same. We'll probably have to do the both on both sides. Same thing, both sides is what I was trying to say. This appears to be okay up here. It's just down here in the floorboard where everything is soaked and gotten wet and just sat that we're gonna have to cut out. All right, took the cutoff wheel across here and trying to separate these pieces of metal so I can look at the floor pan separately. Some of the seam sealers stuck pretty well, and some of it's just coming apart. Here's the underneath view. Some of this is fairly decent metal. Oof. Not sure what's going on here. Oh, that's the bottom side of that panel. Okay. Cool. You can see where that's a little more rotten in the floorboard than I thought it was. Unfortunately, right here in the middle was a little bit of good metal I had to cut and sacrifice anyway. No real choice, but I'm going to take this entire lip out of here and clean all this up and get it ready for replacement welding. That used to be the overhang, the floor lip that hung over this. Now we're going to go through and grind this down and see how much good usable metal we have in here. All right. We've swapped spots. Junior is over there sanding down and cleaning up the metal that's left so we have something to weld into. I am starting the same process over here. This is nowhere near as bad as over there, I don't think. We've got some spots, but all the metal that's still here is a lot more solid than it was on the other side. There's nothing crunchy even around the holes, so I'm not sure I'm going to do as much cutting. I do have to pull this out and clean this up. And I found a hole. This is a pretty good hole. This is going to have to cut out quite a bit. I'm going to have to cut really shallow here because this is right over our suspension, which is not good. Passenger side is almost ready for some welding. This side I'm still kind of working on this. What really sucks about this driver's side is the sealant up here seems to have held really well. All the rust is up here, but everything looks good on this seam from the top and bottom. Let's take a look from the bottom. So it's not beautiful, but this is a lot better than the other side. This is actual good quality, grindable, paintable, weldable metal under here. So I think I've only got to cut out a couple of small spots. I think I can get away with patching this side. By the way, there's that other hole in the back floorboard right here underneath our control arm hookup, which I don't like. That's not fun. I'm glad I crawled under here. Our fuel lines were bolted up right under here, right where I'm going to be welding. So I've pulled them out of the way. Move this brake line out of the way a little bit. I also came under here and kind of pried up on the floor pan a little. The floor pan was sagging and it was just resting on this subframe connector down here. So I kind of pried it back into shape so I can weld it a little easier. Kris Jr. has come over here and ground down what's left of our good metal and sprayed rust reformer on it. And I've pried up the floor pan. I'm going to take this piece of metal and I'm going to weld around here to replace what we cut out. A couple of little spots I'm just going to try to fill in with some welding wire. And I know someone is going to complain that I primed this before welding, but I didn't have a lot of choice. When I weld in this patch, there's going to be a lot of raw metal underneath it that I didn't want to leave unprotected. So I just went ahead and coated it, and trust me, whatever primer is under here is going to burn away when the weld hits it. And we'll come back here and hit it with some rust reform again. It is not pretty, and I'm not done, but it is holding weight. The weight of the floor is now up off of the subframe connector. That patch is holding up the weight of the floor and is connecting this. So I've got to go in. I've got 1,000 little pinholes to fill in, a couple little gaps I got to fill in. I burned through a couple of times. It's taken quite a bit of experimentation with wire speed and heat to figure this out, but it is coming together. Okay, for the most part, as ugly as these booger welds are, we have it essentially airtight and sealed up, except for one spot I just discovered over here. You can only see it from this one angle. I burned through there. I'm gonna have to go back, clean that up. We are not going through and regrinding these welds. We're just checking them from the top and the bottom and make sure they're airtight, or like no light is passing through them, and we're moving on. It's not that big a deal. We are not professional welders. Here are the patch panels. We're gonna spot weld into the floor. Yeah, I kind of miscut them, misshaped them. ended up too big, then I ground them down too small. And you know they say measure twice, cut once. I measure never and cut a bunch and then have to redo them. That's just how I roll. All right, here's Kris Jr. He's gonna spot weld our patch panels into place. Go ahead, buddy. There you go. Stop and check your work. Let me look at it. That looks good. Now we're going to check it and make sure it's actually attached.
Going?
Yep, keep going. All right. That weld held. Go move on to the next one. All right. Check it. Make sure it looks good. Move on to the next one. Check it. We good? All right. Keep going. And here's Junior doing the other side, hitting the driver's side. All right, check it. That is it for day one. We've run out of daylight. There is that patch panel over there. We rust reformed, sprayed all of our welds from today to keep them from rusting. This will have to be redone tomorrow. I kind of screwed up the cut and it wasn't even. So we're gonna have to redo it. I'll have to cut a new patch panel tomorrow and have Junior weld it back up. He did a good welding job. It wasn't even. Some of the welds were here in the void with nothing underneath them. And it was just loose and rickety. So I'll cut a new one. But that's it for the day. This took 3 times longer than we thought it would. So we never even came close to starting on the front half. We're still in the back half. Hopefully tomorrow. Good morning. It's the next day. The weather took a slight turn overnight, about 40-45 degrees. It was shorts and t-shirt weather yesterday. It is not today, but we are back at it bright and early. You can literally hear a rooster crowing. There's no sun really out yet. Let's get to work. Junior just said he wants to eat the rooster. You know, traditionally, boy, we eat the chickens and leave the roosters, right?
Yeah, but that one makes noise.
That one makes noise, so it's time to kill it and eat it, huh?
Neighbors won't mind.
Neighbors won't mind. I don't think anyone around here would mind. I kind of agree with you on this one. Back to work, boy. Being the next morning, I slept on this and I already have regrets. I really wish I had taken another sheet of metal and made an L bracket and tied this all in together. I started thinking about that last night. A little late now. I'd have to do a lot of grinding and a lot of cutting to get it ready for that, but hindsight's 20/20. Oh well. I just hope this doesn't rip out and detach someday. Even though we're going to have to save most of the back seat area for another day, another project, because there's actually a hole through the ground, Kris is going to wire wheel that, figure out what's good metal and what's not, and then we're going to try to patch that today because that's an actual hole. While he does that, I've got to get in here and figure this out, and this looks worse than the back seat joint. Now that I'm here, I'm going to have to cut all this sealant away and get under here, and it looks like there's a lot of metal missing. Good times. I am feeling way in over my head right about now, as I've done this essentially with my hands, just wiped all this rust away and all this old sealant, and it is not good, or as the boy would say, nein gut, as he's learning that language of those people who did the infamous thing in the 1940s that I can't say on YouTube. But seriously, every time I say it's worse than I thought, it's like a Richter scale. Every 0.1 that it goes up is like 10 times worse than the one before. Oh man, this is not going to be fun. a little bit of good news. Junior's come back here and ground all this down, and when I saw this, I was like, oh my God, this whole panel's gonna have to go. But he's going through it, and really it's kind of spotty. I can actually fix some of this, and I'm gonna put a patch right here, so I'm not even really worried about that. That's easy compared to the front floorboards. Now we're gonna get Junior up here to pull back this padding and get up under the driver's side firewall and see if it's as bad as the passenger side. We now have the car in the air to start doing both floorboards. By the way, that floorboard over there is a lot worse than we thought it was. Again, and yes, I'm saying that a whole lot lately. Here's what used to be the driver's side floorboard on the ground. And here's what I'm dealing with underneath. Got a lot of cutting to do, and we had to move some fuel lines. And it's kind of inconvenient that this freaking subframe connector is right under where we need to cut. Had a couple of delays. Had to go back through and redo these patch panels during the night. Some of the welds came loose. So hit those again, hit them with some rust reformer. Now this one's rock solid now. And then we have this. This is under the driver's seat. Clearly someone has already come in here, cut out old metal, and patched this up. The good news is that there's only surface rust underneath this, and everything else is still solid. So that's a rust reformer, and forget it and move on, thank God, because we have got so much else to weld. All right, I'm under the car. I think I have a plan of attack. Cut out all the rust here. Unfortunately, this kind of ties into the main unibody frame and the subframe connector over here. Got a plan for it also. Unfortunately, I found rust holes in the bottom of the car. This was folded over this. And then this, I punched my finger through it, so that'll have to wait till exterior restoration. I've got enough to do in the inside of the car for now, but I'm going to get this tire off, and I'm going to try to patch this piece from the outside and get to work. I was just showing Kris Jr. that some of our rock has infected and rusted through. This is the subframe channel that holds the car together, and the subframe connector. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this to box that in to connect this back and fill this in. Here's our box over that subframe rail. It is in, it is strong. We tried prying on it with a screwdriver and a chisel. It's in there fairly firmly. Is it good? Some would argue no. Is it good enough? Those same people would probably argue also no. But this is what's happening, and that's why we don't ask those people their opinions. On to the next phase. I think I'm just gonna weld in that drain hole, because all it does is drain water directly into the frame rail and the subframe connector anyway, and we don't want that. Moving on. Here's an update. This may not be pretty, but at least the floor patch panel is really solid. It did penetrate all the way around. I'm running out of metal, sheet metal, so I'm having to make little pieces of patch panel. I am having trouble getting this to penetrate and stick. There's a lot more rust and rot over here than we thought. I'm not really sure what we're going to do about that other than try to get some more metal in there to fill in. But there's an update. It is several hours later. I've been working on trying to patch this, and it is not going well. Every single time we get close to getting it covered, we burn through more old rust or thin metal, and it's just a nightmare. Let me show you what we've done on the outside. We had to give up trying to patch it from the inside completely. I've taken to trying to weld this and patch it from the outside. It's going slightly better, but I have tried wire and stick or arc welding, and it's just equally burning through everywhere. There's hardly anything left. But we're out of time for today. This has taken the last few hours. The floor patch is actually really easy and smooth, and this has been hours. We've had multiple patch panels. There's basically just a giant hole here now that we're trying to patch up, and no matter what we do, it's just nothing's sticking. But we're out of time for the day, and we're gonna have to move on. We'll be back in a few days to work with this. We are officially done for the day. Our day has ended, and we monkeyed around with that part over there for hours and hours, burned up the day. Never even got over here, which hopefully, if this turns out just to be a floor pan, that'll go as smoothly as the other floor pan did, and we'll be done.